The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time watching endless streams of data, drinking coffee, and occasionally checking for any unusual signals from the vast emptiness of space. But tonight was different. Tom Reed sat up straight in his chair as his screen lit up with strange readings. The energy signatures coming from the edge of the solar system didn't match anything in their database. They were too organized to be natural and too strange to be from Earth ships. "Sir, you need to see this," he called out to his supervisor, Robert Kane, who was doing his usual midnight rounds. Kane walked over, his coffee cup still steaming. His eyes widened as he looked at the readings. "Call Earth Space Command. Now." Within hours, the Situation Room at Space Command Headquarters was filled with military officers and scientists. The strange energy readings were getting stronger, and they needed to make a decision fast. Captain James Walker stood at attention as Admiral White explained his mission. The Perseverance, Earth's newest deep space vessel, would investigate the anomaly. At 45 years old, Walker had seen his share of strange things in space, but something about these readings made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "This is not a first contact scenario," Admiral White said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But if it turns out to be, well, you know the protocols." The Perseverance left Earth's orbit 12 hours later. The ship wasn't the biggest in Earth's fleet, but it was the fastest and most reliable. Its crew of 50 was handpicked for missions exactly like this one. As they approached the source of the signals, the ship's science officer, Linda Foster, kept getting stranger and stranger readings. "Captain," she called out, "these energy patterns, they're failing. Whatever's out there, it's dying." Walker stood behind her chair, watching the data scroll across her screen. "How long until visual range?" 20 minutes, sir." Those 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, each person lost in their own thoughts about what they might find. "Visual range in 5, 4, 3, 2. Foster's voice trailed off as the main screen lit up. The sight took everyone's breath away. Dozens of massive ships, unlike anything humans had ever built, floated silently in the darkness of space. Their sleek designs spoke of technology far beyond Earth's capabilities, but something was wrong. The ships were dark, with only faint emergency lights flickering across their hulls. "Life signs?" Walker asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thousands, sir," Foster replied. "But their power systems are failing. Those ships are dying." Walker made a quick decision. "Send out the first contact package on all frequencies, and get me a direct line to Earth Space Command." Before they could act, a weak transmission reached them. The universal translator took a few seconds to process it, but when it did, the message was clear. "Help. Life support failing. Children aboard." The signal came from what appeared to be the largest ship in the fleet. Its design suggested it was a civilian vessel, not a warship. Whatever had happened to these ships, they weren't here for a fight. They were running from something. "Move us closer," Walker ordered. "But keep our shields up. Foster, I want continuous scans. Engineering, prepare for possible rescue operations." As the Perseverance drew closer to the alien fleet, the crew could see more details. The ships were beautiful, with designs that seemed to flow like water frozen in space. But now, they were like dying whales, floating helplessly in the void. "Sir," Foster's voice was urgent, "I'm detecting some kind of energy field. It's draining their power. That's why they're stuck here." Walker looked at the massive fleet of dying ships, knowing that his next decisions could change human history forever. Thousands of lives hung in the balance, and Earth's first contact with an alien civilization would be defined by what they did next. He pressed the ship-wide comm button. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. Prepare for rescue operations. We're about to make history." The next few minutes would prove crucial, not just for the stranded aliens, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. Earth's first major contact with alien life wouldn't be a war or a diplomatic meeting. It would be a rescue mission. The next few hours aboard the Perseverance were the busiest in the ship's history. Captain Walker stood in the main conference room, looking at the holographic display of the alien fleet. 53 ships of various sizes hung motionless in space, their emergency lights growing dimmer by the hour. The aliens call themselves the Asteri, Linda Foster explained to the gathered crew. She had been working non-stop to translate their communications. They're refugees. Their home star began to die unexpectedly, forcing them to evacuate their entire civilization. The room fell silent as images appeared on the screen. The Asteri looked almost like tall, graceful deer walking on two legs, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer. Their large eyes showed intelligence and, right now, fear. "How many?" Walker asked, his voice heavy with concern. 50,000 civilians, Foster replied, including 15,000 children. They've been traveling for 3 months, looking for a new home. She paused, checking her datapad. But something in this region of space is draining their power. Their technology. It's just not working here. Chief Engineer Baker stepped forward, his usually cheerful face serious. Their tech is too advanced. That's the problem. They use some kind of quantum energy system we barely understand. But whatever's causing this drain, it's targeting complex energy patterns. The more advanced the system, the faster it fails. How long do they have? Walker asked. The main life support systems. Baker shook his head. Maybe 48 hours, some ships less. The Asteri leader, first speaker Tor, appeared on the main screen. Despite being aliens, the crew could see the worry in his large, expressive eyes. "We appreciate Earth's offer of assistance," he said through the translator. "But our systems are far too complex for your level of technology to comprehend. We mean no offense, but your species has barely reached space." Walker stepped forward. "With all due respect, first speaker, that might be exactly why we can help. Our primitive technology might be simple enough to work here." Tor's expression was hard to read, but his tone carried doubt. "You suggest we trust the lives of our people to nuclear power and chemical rockets. I suggest you trust us to try," Walker replied firmly. "Every hour we spend debating this is an hour closer to system failure." The alien leader was quiet for a long moment. Around him, other Asteri moved quickly, working at control panels that were clearly losing power. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. We will allow your engineers to examine one of our smaller vessels first." As soon as the transmission ended, Walker turned to his crew. "Baker, get your best people ready. Foster, continue analyzing their technical data. We need to understand their systems fast." Messages were already flying back to Earth. Every spacefaring nation was scrambling to send ships. The Chinese vessel Dawn Star and the European Union's Galileo were closest, already changing course to help. In the ship's mess hall, the crew gathered during their brief break. Many looked worried, some excited. Tom Wilson, a young engineer, spoke what many were thinking. "Can we really do this? Their ships are so advanced, they're practically magic compared to ours." Baker smiled as he sipped his coffee. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. We might not have fancy quantum drives, but our nuclear engines have worked reliably for a century. Sometimes being high-tech isn't as important as being dependable." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Foster's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, to the bridge, immediately. One of the alien ships is experiencing cascading system failures." Walker ran to the bridge, his heart pounding. On the main screen, he could see one of the smaller Asteri vessels going completely dark. The translator crackled with panic as alien voices called for help. "Life support failing. 200 souls aboard. Please, anyone." The captain looked at his crew, seeing determination in their eyes. Humanity's first major test in the galactic community had arrived. They had to prove that despite their primitive technology, Earth's people had the ingenuity, courage, and compassion to save these stranded refugees. Walker hit the ship-wide comm. All rescue teams to stations. We're going in. The small Asteri ship floated dead in space, its emergency lights fading quickly. Captain Walker watched from the Perseverance's bridge as his rescue teams prepared for their first attempt to save the stranded aliens. Engineering team ready, Baker reported through the comm. He and his team wore basic spacesuits. Their advanced suits wouldn't work in the strange energy field. We're going in old school. Walker nodded. Remember, we got 200 lives depending on us. Let's show them what humans can do. The rescue team pushed off from the Perseverance, using simple gas thrusters to move through space. Their tools were basic: wrenches, power cables, and portable nuclear batteries that Earth ships used for emergencies. No fancy electronics, no advanced computers, just proven, reliable technology. Inside the alien ship, the Asteri watched with a mixture of hope and doubt as the human engineers entered through the emergency airlock. The ship's interior was beautiful, with smooth curves and glowing panels, but now most of those panels were dark. Baker led his team to the ship's engine room. The Asteri engineer in charge, Tor's assistant named Mar, waited for them. Even in the dim emergency lighting, they could see the worry on his alien face. "Your equipment seems very basic," Mar said through a portable translator. "Our power systems are highly complex. They operate on principles your science might not." "Sometimes basic is better," Baker interrupted with a smile. He pulled out a simple voltage meter. "Now show me where your main power intake is." The next hour was a crash course in alien technology. The humans worked fast, using hand signals and simple tools. They didn't need to understand the complex quantum systems. They just needed to know where power went in and how much was needed. Back on the Perseverance, Foster made a breakthrough. "Captain, look at this." She pointed to her readings. "Their advanced systems are being drained, but our simple electronics are working fine. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose versus a water cup. The complex energy patterns get disrupted, but basic electrical current flows normally." Walker immediately understood. Get that information to Baker's team. In the alien engine room, Baker and his team had already started rigging up their solution. They had connected 3 portable nuclear batteries to the ship's power intake, using simple copper cables and basic transformers. "This is never going to work," Mar said, watching nervously. "The power requirements alone." Baker held up his hand, checking the connections one last time. "Trust us. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." He looked at his team. "Ready?" "Start it up." The batteries hummed to life. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, lights began to flicker on throughout the ship. Systems that had been dead started to respond. It wasn't full power, but it was enough to keep life support running. Mar stared at his control panel in disbelief. "How? This is impossible. You're powering our systems with such primitive technology." "Not primitive," Baker corrected him. "Reliable. And right now, that's what matters." The news spread quickly through the stranded fleet. The human solution wasn't elegant, but it worked. More Earth ships were arriving every hour, each carrying more nuclear batteries and basic equipment. Walker coordinated with Earth Space Command as ships from every nation joined the rescue effort. Russian nuclear submarines were being converted into power stations. Chinese solar arrays were being repurposed. Every country was sending what they could. First Speaker Tor contacted the Perseverance, his tone very different now. "Captain Walker, we may have misjudged your species. Your solution is unexpectedly effective." "Sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer," Walker replied. "Now let's talk about saving the rest of your fleet. We'll need to work together. Your knowledge of your systems, our basic but working technology." As he looked out at the fleet of stranded ships, Walker felt proud. Humanity had faced its first major galactic test, not with weapons or advanced technology, but with simple tools, basic science, and the determination to help others in need. All rescue teams, he announced over the general frequency. This is just the beginning. We've got 49 more ships to save. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do. 3 days into the rescue operation, things were going well. 20 ships had been fitted with human power systems, and more Earth vessels arrived every hour. But no one expected what happened next. Captain Foster's voice cut through the quiet bridge of the Perseverance. Multiple power failures on the Asteri ship Hope Light. Their backup systems are completely dead. Walker rushed to his station. The Hope Light was one of the largest ships in the fleet, carrying mostly families. On the main screen, he could see entire sections of the massive vessel going dark. "Get me first speaker tour," Walker ordered. When the alien leader appeared on screen, his silver skin had turned pale gray with worry. "Captain, we have an emergency," Tor said, his voice shaking. 30 children are trapped in a learning center in Section 7. The safety doors are sealed, and the air recyclers are failing. We can't reach them. Baker's voice came over the comm. "Captain, that section's too far gone for a quick power fix. Those kids have maybe 20 minutes of air left." Walker looked at the ship diagram. Section 7 was near the outer hull, almost a kilometer from the nearest working airlock. Even worse, the corridors leading to it were sealed and airless. "What about cutting through the hull?" Walker asked. "The hull's too thick for our cutting tools," Baker replied. "But there might be another way." The maintenance tunnels. They run through the outer skin of the ship. They're tight, but a person in a basic spacesuit might fit. Those tunnels are completely exposed to space. Tor protested. "And they're a maze, without working guidance systems." "We'll use rope and chalk marks," interrupted Lisa West, one of the rescue team leaders. "Like old mountain climbers. Simple but effective." Walker nodded. "How many volunteers do you need?" 3, West replied. "Any more would just crowd the tunnels." Within 5 minutes, West and 2 other crew members, Jack Thompson and Maria Rodriguez, were at the outer hull of the Hope Light. Their basic space suits had no fancy features, just air tanks and heating. Each carried emergency oxygen packs for the children, along with basic tools and chalk. "Remember," Baker said through their comms, "you've got 15 minutes to reach them. After that, you won't have enough air to get back." The team entered the maintenance tunnel through a manual hatch. The tunnel was barely wide enough for one person in a spacesuit. They moved as fast as they could, marking their path with chalk arrows. Both humans and Asteri watched through basic cameras as the rescue team crawled through the freezing tunnels. At each junction, West checked a paper map they'd drawn based on the ship's plans. 10 minutes, Baker warned. The team reached another junction. Left or right? The map wasn't clear here. This section had been added later. West made a quick decision. Left. Has to be left. They crawled faster. Their suit thermometers showed the temperature dropping dangerously low. 5 minutes left on your air, Baker said, his voice tense. Then Thompson saw it. A maintenance hatch with the right markings. "Here. This is it." The team could hear children crying on the other side of the hatch. The air was getting thin in there. Working together, they forced the manual release. The hatch swung open. 30 young Asteri, their silver skin dulled with fear, looked up at the human rescuers. Rodriguez started passing out emergency oxygen masks, while West and Thompson rigged up a safety line. 2 minutes of air left, Baker warned. "You need to move. Now." West looked at the children, then at her air gauge. There wasn't enough time to lead them all back. She made a quick decision. "Thompson, Rodriguez, take them back through the tunnel. I'll feed you the safety line." But Thompson started to protest. "No time. Move." The evacuation was quick. The children, scared but brave, followed the humans' simple hand signals. West fed the safety line, her own air running dangerously low. Finally, the last child entered the tunnel. West's air alarm was beeping urgently as she pulled herself in behind them. The journey back was a blur of cold metal and fading consciousness. But they made it. As medical teams helped the children, the Asteri watched in amazement. These humans had risked their lives using nothing but basic tools and raw courage. First, Speaker Tor approached Walker. "Your people, they could have died out there." Walker nodded. "That's what we do. We help people who need it, no matter the risk." A week after the rescue of the children, the mood aboard the Perseverance had changed. The temporary power systems were working, but everyone knew they needed a permanent solution. Engineers from Earth and the Asteri worked side by side in what they now called the Innovation Bay, a large cargo hold converted into a workshop. Chief Engineer Baker stood at a workbench, surrounded by both human and alien technology. Next to him, Mar, the Asteri engineer who had once doubted their primitive methods, studied a diagram of Earth's nuclear power systems. "The problem," Baker said, pointing to his sketches, "isn't that our power sources are too weak. It's that we're not combining them the right way." Mar nodded, his silver skin reflecting the workshop lights. "Your nuclear systems are surprisingly resistant to the energy drain, but they don't produce enough power alone for our larger ships." Baker picked up a piece of Asteri technology, a small quantum power cell. Even dead, it was beautiful, with swirling patterns that seemed to move in the light. "But what if we used your technology not to generate power, but to channel it?" The idea spread excitement through the workshop. Human nuclear power, channeled through Asteri quantum systems. It had never been tried before, because no one had thought to combine such different levels of technology. Captain Walker watched from the observation deck as teams began assembling the first hybrid power core. Earth ships had brought enough nuclear material to power small cities. The Asteri provided their expertise in energy distribution. "It's like building a bridge," Baker explained to the gathered crews. "Our nuclear power is the foundation. Solid, reliable, unaffected by the drain. The Asteri quantum tech is the roadway, directing that power exactly where it needs to go." The first test was scheduled for the next day. No one slept much that night. The future of 50,000 refugees depended on this working. Morning came. The test ship was the same vessel where they'd saved the children. First, Speaker Tor insisted on being present, standing proudly next to Walker. "Begin power-up sequence," Baker called out. The hybrid core hummed to life. Humans and Asteri held their breath as power readings began to climb. 10%, 20, 50. Warning alarms blared. Power fluctuation. Someone shouted. The core's light flickered dangerously. "Hold steady." Baker's voice cut through the panic. His hands flew over the controls, making tiny adjustments. Mar worked beside him, their movements perfectly synchronized after days of working together. The alarms stopped. The core stabilized. Power readings continued to climb. 70%, 80, 90. Foster read out the numbers, her voice getting more excited with each one. 100% power. The ship's systems came fully alive for the first time in weeks. Cheers erupted from both humans and Asteri. Tor placed a hand on Walker's shoulder, a gesture he had learned from the humans. "Your people continue to amaze us," the alien leader said. "We thought our technology was too advanced to work with yours. Instead, they complement each other perfectly." Walker smiled. "Sometimes the best solutions come from working together. Different approaches, different technologies, but the same goal." Over the next few hours, they fine-tuned the hybrid core. It wasn't just working. It was working better than either species' power systems had worked alone. The human nuclear core provided stable, reliable power, while the Asteri quantum systems distributed it with incredible efficiency. "How soon can we build more?" Tor asked. Baker looked at his teams, humans and Asteri working together like they'd done it all their lives. "With both our peoples working together, we can have the whole fleet powered up in 2 weeks." Walker watched as the test ship's lights glowed brightly against the darkness of space. It was more than just a technological breakthrough. It was proof that two very different civilizations could come together, combine their strengths, and create something greater than either could have achieved alone. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them we need every nuclear core they can spare. We're going to power up this entire fleet." The message that went out carried more than just a request for supplies. It carried hope. Hope that humanity's place in the galaxy would be defined not by the age of their technology, but by their ingenuity, determination, and willingness to help others in need. 2 weeks after the successful test, space around the Asteri fleet buzzed with activity. Earth had sent everything they could spare. Retired nuclear submarines were stripped for their reactors. Old power plants donated their cores. Every nation contributed what they could. Captain Walker stood in the Perseverance's control room, now filled with both human and Asteri operators. The wall-sized display showed the status of every ship in the fleet. One by one, red dots were turning green as each vessel received its hybrid power core. 35 ships powered up, Foster reported, working at her station next to an Asteri communication officer. 15 more to go. Baker's voice came over the comm from the largest refugee ship, where he was overseeing the installation of another core. "Captain, you need to see this. The hybrid systems are doing more than we expected." Walker made his way to the refugee ship. Inside, he found Baker and Marr studying readings on a combined human-Asteri display. The sight of their technologies working together still amazed him. "Look at these power levels," Baker said, pointing to the screen. "The quantum systems aren't just distributing our nuclear power, they're amplifying it. Each core is producing 30% more power than it should be able to." Marr nodded excitedly. "It's like your nuclear power wakes up something in our quantum systems. Together, they create energy patterns that resist the drain completely." A young Asteri child wandered into the engine room, staring wide-eyed at the glowing hybrid core. Instead of shooing her away, Baker knelt down and began explaining how it worked, using simple gestures and drawings. The child's eyes lit up with understanding. "That's the 10th time I've seen that today," Marr said quietly to Walker. "Your engineers, they don't just fix our ships. They teach our people. They share their knowledge freely." Walker watched as more Asteri children gathered around Baker. "That's what humans do. We learn, we teach, we grow together." Across the fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Human engineers worked alongside Asteri technicians, teaching each other their technologies. Language barriers broke down as they developed their own way of communicating through diagrams, hand signals, and shared understanding of scientific principles. The Russian icebreaker-turned-power carrier Aurora docked with one of the last unpowered ships. Its crew had been working nonstop for days, but they showed no signs of tiring. Their captain, an old submarine commander named Victor, supervised the core installation personally. "Like nuclear submarine, yes," he said to the Asteri engineers, patting the core housing. "Simple, reliable, always works. Now made better with your quantum magic." The Asteri had stopped correcting humans when they called their technology magic. They had learned that it was a kind of compliment, an expression of admiration rather than dismissal. Back on the Perseverance, Walker received an urgent call from First Speaker Tor. The alien leader's face on the screen showed an emotion humans had never seen before, pure joy. "Captain, we've discovered something extraordinary," Tor said. "The hybrid cores, they don't just power our ships. They might be the key to protecting us from the energy drain permanently. Our scientists believe we can modify our shields using this technology." Walker leaned forward. "You mean?" "Yes. Once all ships are powered up, we can create a fleet-wide shield that will protect us from the drain. We can finally leave this region of space safely." The news spread quickly through both human and Asteri crews. Cheers erupted on every ship. What had started as a desperate rescue mission had turned into something much more. The beginning of a technological revolution that benefited both species. "Final ship powering up now," Foster announced. Everyone watched as the last red dot on the display turned green. The entire Asteri fleet was alive again, glowing with the combined power of human and alien technology. Walker looked at his crew, humans and Asteri working side by side, as if they'd done it all their lives. "Send word to Earth," he said. "Tell them the impossible just became possible." And we did it together. 1 month after the rescue operation began, the Asteri fleet hung in orbit around Earth. Their massive ships, now fully powered by hybrid cores, cast beautiful shadows on the planet below. Captain Walker stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall, beside First Speaker Tor, as they addressed representatives from every nation. "The Asteri fleet is fully operational," Walker reported. "But more importantly, we've discovered something that will change both our civilizations forever." Tor stepped forward, his silver skin gleaming under the lights. "When we first encountered humans, we thought their technology was primitive. We were wrong. By combining our technologies, we have created something neither of us could have achieved alone." On the massive screen behind them, images showed the new hybrid power systems being installed in Earth's space stations. The same technology that saved the Asteri was now improving human space travel. "Earth has offered us temporary sanctuary while we repair our ships," Tor continued. "But we would like to propose something more permanent." The hall fell silent as Tor revealed their proposal. The Asteri wanted to establish a permanent settlement in the solar system, not as refugees, but as partners in humanity's space program. "Our advanced ships, combined with human ingenuity and reliable technology, could open up new possibilities for both our peoples," Tor explained. "Together, we could reach further into space than either of us could alone." In the following days, Earth buzzed with excitement. The first alien embassy opened in Geneva. Asteri children enrolled in human schools, while human engineers studied at Asteri technical academies. The combination of human practical thinking and Asteri advanced theory was producing breakthroughs almost daily. On the Perseverance, now docked at the International Space Station, Baker and Marr worked on their latest project. They had discovered that the hybrid power system could be miniaturized. "Think about it," Baker said, holding up a prototype the size of a car battery. "Clean, safe power that never fails. Every home on Earth could have one." Marr nodded, adding final adjustments to the device. "And with human distribution systems, we could power Asteri colonies across the galaxy. No more fear of energy drains or system failures." Captain Walker watched Earth from the station's observation deck. First Speaker Tor joined him, both of them comfortable in the silence of old friends. "You know," Walker said finally, "when we first detected your fleet, we thought it might be first contact with alien life. Turns out it was something much more important." Tor turned his large eyes to Walker. "Oh, what was it then?" "First friendship," Walker replied. "First true cooperation between our species. We didn't just exchange technology. We learned to trust each other, to work together, to become better than we were alone." Below them, Earth continued its eternal spin. But now ships of both human and Asteri design orbited it, their crews mixed, their technologies combined. Construction had already begun on the first joint space colony, where both species would live and work together. In classrooms across Earth, children learned about the great rescue that changed everything. They learned how humanity's first major contact with alien life wasn't a war or a trade deal, but a rescue mission that turned into a partnership. The Perseverance's crew gathered one last time before their well-earned shore leave. Human and Asteri crew members stood together, no longer separated by species or rank. "What's next, Captain?" Foster asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Walker smiled. "We've got a whole galaxy out there, and now we have twice the ingenuity to explore it with." He looked at his mixed crew. "The Asteri taught us about advanced technology. We taught them about reliability and simplicity. Together, there's no limit to what we can achieve." First Speaker Tor raised his hand in a very human gesture. "To the future." "To the future," Walker agreed. "And to proving that sometimes the best way to advance isn't to work alone with fancy technology, but to work together with good friends." As the sun rose over Earth, human and Asteri ships sailed together into the dawn of a new era. It was just the beginning of a partnership that would change the galaxy forever.